Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Okay, well, maybe I can start with intros and stuff, Amanda, and then we'll roll into the content because I know everyone's busy. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Stancy Tooth. I'm the education lead at Format. I'm also a professional artist, so I'm actually talking to you from my studio in Toronto. And I come from Format from a varied background. I was a gallery director specializing in analog photography for a long time. I'm also a professor and I teach professional practice, so things like portfolio building and all the professional tools you need to start a creative business. So I come to this space from a lot of experience looking at portfolios. With me on the call today is Beth Irangu, who is the executive director of BWP, Black Women Photographers. Also my colleague from Format, Amanda Whitegiver, who is a portrait and family photographer with a fine art background with over 15 years of experience in the industry. So she comes with a huge wealth of experience, and she's going to be sharing with us today. Amanda will be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to enter your questions at any point. She'll either answer some stuff in the chat or interrupt me at any time, Amanda, with questions if they'll help with our conversation.
Certainly,
I'm
thank
just
you.
getting over a cold, so excuse me if my voice breaks a little bit here and there. Okay, so for those of you who might not be familiar with Format, just a quick overview. Format is a portfolio web builder. And what sort of separates us from other website builders is that we really specialize in portfolio websites. So for photographers, artists, designers, basically any kind of visual creative who's looking for a visual portfolio. And then we offer all the business tools to support that kind of website. So things like e-commerce, both autofulfill and self-fulfill, studio management tools, marketing tools, and more. So it's really streamlined specifically to support those kinds of businesses. We're built by photographers and artists to serve photographers and artists, so we really get the needs of those professions. And we're working in partnership right now with Black Women Photographers, which is super exciting. Black Women Photographers was established in July of 2020 and is really disrupting the notion that it's difficult to discover and commission Black creatives. And it's now grown to over 1,500 Black women and non-binary photographers, which is incredible, from 60 plus countries and 35 plus US states. If you're not already a member, if you're not familiar with their community, please go online, visit their website. We'll be sharing this PDF of this presentation, and everything that we're talking about today is live links. So we're linking out to the Black Women Photographers website here. So some things we're going to be talking about today, focusing on online portfolios, but this is just a quick checklist of what you need to kind of grow your reach. So high quality optimized images, your online portfolio, personal branding and style, and your professional intro or about me page, and your social media presence. So we'll be touching on these topics today. So the big question is, what type of site are you making? When I was going to school, portfolios were really taught in just one way. They were a stream of images, maybe a page with your artist statement and bio. And not to date myself too much, but websites have come a long way since then. And what I like to talk to photographers about is really thinking about who your end audience or is for your work. So these are four main sort of buckets that I see in type of websites we have on Format. There's a lot of gray area in between these styles, but really it's about thinking about who's your target audience and what kind of content you need to have on your website to help you communicate to them. And also what kind of layouts and design choices really help to augment that type of portfolio. So there's the fine art website. So photographers showing in galleries, maybe selling their work, selling their fine artwork through their website, the editorial, so think fashion, photojournalism, cinematography. Then there's the customer facing, so portraits, family, weddings and events, local sports, where you're selling your work directly to an end consumer. And these are a different kind of site because it's someone who may not have ever hired a photographer before. We'll definitely get into that. And then industry and small business. So things like product and branding photography, food photography, and real estate. So where you are using your photography to meet the needs of a specific industry. So I'll share some tips and some examples of each of these styles, and then we'll go into specifics about portfolio building. So for fine art websites, I like to think of these like an online exhibition. For these, you want to give a lot of white space. You want room for your images to breathe. Um, and for these types of sites, I really like a horizontal or a vertical scroll. So I've recommended a few different format themes here. I personally use the Stockholm theme on my own website. It's a really beautiful template. Some tips for these sites: use a collection page for image navigation, use captions or text elements to annotate your projects. I'll show you an example of this. Also consider using our workflow feature to track your inventory of your projects. Integrate your Instagram feed on your contact page. And if you think it's appropriate, add a mailing list to track your contacts, particularly if you are selling your work through your website. I think we've got a raised hand. Is there a question?
I did see one person put a question with, does format work with iPads? And
Yeah, so for all format templates and tools are auto adjust for all devices. So when you set up your website, it will auto adjust automatically for iPads, phones, etc. That said, the editor for your website is best served on a computer. You can update and add some things in your iPad, but the full range of all the editing tools is probably a little bit easier on a computer over an iPad, but you can do a lot of stuff on an iPad. Format also has an iOS app, so you can add to your gallery pages and things from your laptop or from your cell phone. It's really great for adding to if you use the blog tool on Format, you can add to your blog from your iPad, as well as to your gallery pages. But yeah, but everything is set to auto adjust for all devices, so it looks great on every screen. So I wanted to share an example of a fine art portfolio that I think is really successful. Can you see this website, Amanda? Yeah,
I can, thank you.
perfect. So this is Hazel May Eckert. She is a fine art photographer on Format. Her website opens onto this beautiful landing page. I'm not always someone who loves landing pages, but in this instance, because she's doing installation photography, it's really great to have this big, bold image of her work, and it really sets the stage for her website. When you go into her page, you're instantly met with this big, beautiful image. She's using a really large vertical scroll. Again, that sort of online exhibition feel. The other thing that I love that she does is include these text elements within her galleries of images. It's always great to remember that when people are coming to your site, they're seeing the work out of context. They're not seeing it in a gallery or in a publication. They're seeing it in an isolated page. So having text to guide the experience of the images is really helpful. This is great for fine art websites when you're adding in things like an artist statement, a description of the scale of the images, the type of installation you're doing. But it also applies to other things, like when you're doing an editorial project, to talk about a client brief. So I always encourage people, include those text elements within your gallery pages. Don't leave the writing all for another isolated page on your website, because it really helps to give people background into your work. So Hazel's site, each of her galleries relates to a different body of work. Again, it tells a story of her practice because each page on her site is a different series. So rather than lumping everything together, she's really guiding you through the experience series by series. The only thing I would change about this website is maybe using image navigation instead of having everything in the site menu. But otherwise, I think it's really successful. She also has her CV laid out, which is wonderful. But on her contact page, she has this short, succinct biography. And I'll keep harping on bios as we go through this webinar, because people coming to your website really want some extra context about you and background about your work. So having a short description about you, where you're located, all that great stuff is really important for every kind of website. Just let me go back into full screen. So I've also included a bunch of different fine art photography websites for you to take a look at. Again, these are all different format members. Another thing I always recommend is if you're just starting out building a website, look to the websites of other people you admire and use it as sort of a template to start your own website. We do this when we start making work. We look to aspirational examples, and the same thing applies to all the business practices around our work. Look at how people are organizing their images, how they talk about their work, and how they outline their services on their website. Look to other examples as a template. So that's why I love to provide a lot of real world examples of different people you can look at for inspiration. Our format website also has a ton of additional examples. We have a magazine. There's lots of resources to take a look at how other people are using the platform.
And
Okay,
Stanzi, before we go too far,
yeah,
we just had one question about clarifying what is image navigation. I think you might have a slide about this or a site
yeah.
example, but I just wanted to make sure, just in case there wasn't one with a slide. So,
Totally. So I'm actually going to show an example on image navigation right now. So I wanted to go next into editorial websites. So things like fashion, journalism, cinematography. These websites are also about showing off your own personal style, but how you use that to satisfy the needs of sort of an industry client. So you might be working with a publication, a director, someone. They're looking for your own personal aesthetic, but how you can kind of work with other industry professionals to realize a project. These can be similar to fine art websites, but I find that it helps to keep galleries short and to the point with just your best images. Like think if you're doing a magazine layout, you have to tell a story in a few images. You don't have like 30, 40, 50 images to kind of get across that project. Organize your galleries by project or photo shoot, and then connect these with a collection page. So that's that image navigation that I'll show you. Share your client list, and if you don't have one yet, then make sure to write a really great bio statement where you talk about your shooting style, um, what kind of work you specialize in, and the kind of skills you bring to your work. So I wanted to show off Mark Clennan's website. Sorry, I'm getting a tiny loading lag here. Mark is an incredible editorial photographer based in LA. When you go onto his website, you're immediately met with this amazing tiled layout. And when you click on an image, it also opens into a lightbox view. So it makes for a really great user experience because if I'm someone hiring a photographer, I'm looking at a bunch of portfolios, I immediately get a sense of the type of models he works on, his aesthetic, his style right away. Then when I go into a page on a site like client work, this is what I mean when I talk about image navigation. So this is a page of image links that go to smaller gallery pages. He's decided to organize them by his client list. And as you can see, like Mark's really established, it's a very impressive list, like Vans, Nike, Kate Spade. But he's organized it by different client projects. When you click on one, like his Apple gallery, it opens up a small selection of images. So each of his galleries is no more than like 10 images. Um, and I think that's super effective because like he's showing you the full range of his clients with that image navigation. But then when you go into the specific projects, it's like, look how effective my photography can be. I can tell your story in 10 images or less. He's also incorporated animated GIFs to add a sense of motion in different places. So just a really stunning website. I also really love his about page. He has a really great bio. One big thing is always include the city you're located in. That's really important for people who are looking to hire someone in their area. It helps with the SEO of your website. That means search engine optimization. He talks about clients he's worked for, his motivation for getting into photography, but it's just a few short paragraphs. He has like a succinct kind of client list, speaking engagements. And then down on the bottom, this isn't something that everyone will have, but he's got these videos to offer additional background and context about him. So this is a video he made about a BLM protests, behind the scenes photo shoots and interviews. So I like how it starts super broad with this bio statement and then it gets more specific. So the more people want to get deeper into his practice, the more they scroll through the page, the more kind of in depth they get. I also want to show off Demola's website. Demola is a member of BWP, really beautiful editorial sort of portrait work. And again, her website sort of spans between like the fine art and the editorial.
Great vertical feed, again, like a good selection of images. And she's divided it by personal work and commissioned work. When we go into her commissioned work, she has it organized by client projects. And then if we open up something, what was the one I was looking at? The Essence magazine shoot. It's really just a few images showing off the key images from that page and then them in context of the publication in the magazine. So again, like having these, or there's another one, which one was it? Marshall's. Using image navigations when she's done different projects for the same publication, having an image navigation, and then going in and having a link to that article. So again, just making it very clean and clear.
Actually, I had a couple of related questions.
Sure.
If you have a moment, Stanzi. So I'm going to do them a little bit out of order just because of relating to what you spoke about. I have one saying, I am a journalist, but my website contains my freelance work.
Mhm.
For editorial portfolios, is it necessary to have captions for photos or just allow the photos to speak for themselves? I think this is probably a little bit subjective depending on the work and your own storytelling style, but I wonder if you have any recommendations for that.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing is like you can have one piece of text overall for the entire gallery. You don't have to add text to every individual image. So what I see a lot is people having like a text element somewhere within their gallery page, like Hazel's project, for example, on a lot of her pages, she'll just have like one statement for the entire gallery. I think individual captions are important more so for like a fine art website where someone has to include details like scale and media if it might not be obvious by looking at the image. The other time I see captions being added to every image is when people have an overall gallery for something like editorial, like a broad topic, and then each individual image might be from a different campaign and identifying the campaign that it might be for. But otherwise, you don't need to caption everything. I just think that having some text to guide the viewing experience can be helpful. Yeah, so let me know if that answers your question.
I think that was a pretty clear, and I mean, just since there's also some related SEO ones to touch quickly on that, I would say the one way you may want to involve a little bit of text per image that doesn't necessarily have to be displayed is adding like alt text that describes what's happening in your image because that can help improve the SEO for your website.
Yeah.
It just makes it more accessible as well. So that's something people could consider.
Yeah,
Um,
and I can touch on it at the end. I also have linked to a guide about SEO and format. Format has tons of built-in tools for SEO. You can add SEO to the individual pages on your site, but you can also add meta tags to your images themselves. So it's also great for things like sight readers, for people who might have disabilities reading them on your site, but that information also gets picked up by things like Google image search, for example.
the next question, Stanzi, was um, do you suggest different portfolio sites for different types of work? And I know we may need to get a little bit more of a clarification, but
Yeah, I
LaShawn,
actually have a slide about this a little bit later. Yeah,
perfect.
so I'll
Oh, we
definitely talk about that for sure, because it's something
wonderful.
that comes up a lot, especially with photography where people might specialize in different genres. And I think I've got a few good tips for deciding when and how you should split up your practice for sure.
Wonderful. And I think let's some of these I can answer via chat. So
Sure.
we'll move on and then I'll review.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Um, and some more editorial websites. The two featured here are also BWP members, so some of their examples throughout. So for sure, take a look at some of these later. Customer facing sites. So when I talk about customer facing, I mean any kind of photography where you are dealing directly with the end consumer. So things like family photography, newborn photography, wedding photography, where your client is really the subject of the photographs as well. Um, these are very different sites in that they require you to add in some more information and context. My rule of thumb is whenever you have a less experienced client or end consumer, the more kind of information and context you want to provide. Someone hiring a family photographer, a wedding photographer, may have never hired a photographer ever. So the experience might be a little intimidating. So you really need to guide them and make the experience a little bit less opaque for them, guide their experience. Like I know my husband and I got married last summer and we hired a wedding photographer. And it was the first time I'd hired that type of photographer. So it was really helpful to have that context looking at people's websites. So I offered some tips here for these types of websites. You want a little bit of a faster viewing experience on the portfolio. You might want to show more images than you would on an editorial or fine art website because you want to give people a sense of what you can do. But you really want to pay a lot of attention to things like your home page, your About Me page, and then any pages that offer additional context like services or FAQs. So a few tips, and I'll show you some examples. Some tips here though are use hero images to set the tone, big splashy images at the beginning that kind of set the style of your website. Spell out your services in a dedicated page, provide FAQ sections so your customers can get a sense of what to expect when they hire you. Shantae is a BWP member. I really love her website. Really great vertical feed of images. I really loved her About Me page. It was very personable. With these kinds of websites, you can also be a little bit more casual in your writing because if someone's hiring you for their event, hiring you to come maybe to their home to shoot their family, they want to get a little sense about you, your personality, as well as your work because they're going to be with you potentially on some of the biggest days of their lives. So having a photograph of yourself is a great idea. Offering some personal details. Some smart things I see is like if you are a family photographer, include a beautiful photo of your own family if you feel comfortable. Explain what your interest is in these types of events or this type of photography. People really like to get sort of the warm and fuzzies from these kinds of websites. So I thought Shantae's About page was really great because it's funny, it's very vibrant, and I get a sense of her looking at her website. I also wanted to share Mateus Fuentes, who is a really amazing wedding photographer on Format. If we click there, sorry, this is actually his homepage. It opens on a beautiful slideshow of some of his best work. So immediately sets the tone for the website. And basically his homepage is a quick overview of everything you're going to find on his website. So if someone, like when I was looking for wedding photographers, I probably reviewed like 30 different websites before I settled on a photographer. So making it easy for people to get a quick overview. So he like has some beautiful examples of his work. He is a quick partial introduction about him, his experience and his approach. Again, like another scroll of some really beautiful imagery. And then this is smart. He has kind of a quick overview of his services. So weddings, engagements, and elopements. So he's spelling out exactly what he does, but doing it not just with words, but with images. He's also made these clickable links. A tip on Format on custom pages, you can turn any image into an image link basically. And if I click on these, it leads to galleries of that work. Again, just using beautiful images of his clients throughout. And then he offers some of his testimonials right on his homepage. There's also a link to additional testimonials and just really just complete homepage. So I really love that about his site. If you go into his services, this is again is a collection page or image navigation on Format. So weddings, elopements, engagements. And then that goes into, oh, sorry, I'm getting a bit of a loading lag on my end from the webinar. But again, just gives you a quick overview on his packages and different things. One thing that Amanda and I discussed about this webinar, I asked Amanda what her opinion was on photographers adding their pricing on their page. It's a surprisingly contentious issue, but Amanda and I are both in support of it, particularly for this style of photography for wedding photography. Again, when you're working with someone who may not have hired a photographer before, giving them an idea of a range of the pricing of your services. You might not have to set it out in exact packages as Mateus has on his website, but even giving a sense of like your starting rate, an hourly rate, something where it sets the expectation of the pricing of your work, I think can be really helpful. So there's a lot of differing opinions, but I would say it really depends on who the end consumer, and I would say for when you're dealing with customers directly rather than industry clients, I would always really recommend having some kind of pricing indicated on your site. He also has a really great info and FAQ page that really sets up what the expectation will be, like what to expect on the day, the process of how he goes about his shoots, all that great stuff. So someone coming on here, if they are drawn in by his images, will really get a complete idea of what to expect on the day of their wedding with his services. So I think it's a really smart website. Again, lots of examples of great customer facing websites, everything from like boudoir to family photography, family portraits, that kind of thing. And then industry sites. So these are kind of similar in that, sorry, did you have something, Amanda?
Well, I was just gonna, before we popped into another type, I
Yeah.
thought we could slip in a couple of questions. There were a few
Sure.
more slightly general ones that I wasn't sure we would be good to address when you're looking through the sites. So one question was just do the site scrolls always go left to right on all devices? And I think that it's possible that it's a little bit different on mobile for certain setups, that it might go vertically instead, correct? If I'm remembering?
So actually on format, we have like a good number of tools for customization, and on the horizontal themes, often there are settings where you can choose the way the scroll will work on mobile. So you can either choose it to have the image go like the full height of the mobile device, or you can set it to auto fit to the screen, or you can choose to have it go vertical on a mobile device instead of horizontal. So it's really nice to have those options. I mean, like, because they specialize in portfolio websites, there's lots of tools to make sure that your images are going to look really great no matter what. So it depends on whichever theme you choose for your site, but there's lots of like mobile display options for each.
Wonderful. And so I don't know if they meant that it would also scroll up and down or just left to right, but I believe the scrolls that move left to right can be scrolled either way. Like if you get to the end of the scroll, you can then scroll back from right to left.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Correct?
for sure.
Just to
Yeah,
make sure we're
the
fully covered.
horizontal scrolls will scroll either way. 100%.
Okay, great. I think that way we covered all angles of
Yeah.
that. Um, and and then another one was which just to keep in mind, and I won't mark it answered until we get to a good spot for it. But I had a question asking what type of template or layout would you recommend for someone that doesn't have a lot of projects yet? So we can touch on that more when we get closer to the other things, but just
Sure.
in case there's a website example that may have lesser content.
Yeah, but I would say like off the top of my head, if you have fewer images, a vertical or horizontal scroll where you're showing large scale images would be better, because rather than like, you don't really want to use a tiled theme because then you won't have many tiles. So I would choose like a singular scroll one way or the other. Format also has some slideshow style themes where it's showing like one image at a time in a rotation. And that can also be good for a beginner portfolio where you don't have a lot of images, because then people don't really know the full like breadth and depth of the site yet. So those are a few things. But some of the most effective portfolios I see, like I deal with a lot of students as well, have like 10 images, because I'd rather see 10 really well curated images than 100 images of whatever you have. So I always encourage students, I'm like, curate down your work, show off the best work, because it's really about putting your best foot forward. So don't be worried about having 10 images on your website. Just support it with good writing and add to it as your practice grows. So yeah. Okay, so industry sites. So for this, I'm talking about things like product photography, branding, food, real estate, where you are targeting specific industries. So think of your website sort of as like a stunning magazine layout, advertising these industries, right? Um, when you're writing about your services, talk about the value that your photography brings to their business and why it's so important. I'm going to jump right into an example that I really love. So this is Erin of Lasso Photo. She does branding and portraits. One thing that I love is that she specializes in branding and portrait photography. And so her site navigation says branding and portraits. Anytime you can reflect your services in your site menu like this, I think is really smart because you know exactly what her portfolio is all about. Her website starts with this beautiful slideshow, and she's added these sort of benefit statements over top of the images. So storytelling with intention, reach the right audience, elevate your online presence, make a powerful first impression. And this is actually her opening. So like her site opens onto the idea, make a powerful first impression. And so she's adding power to her beautiful images with these ideas of the benefits that her photography will bring to these businesses that she's working with. And again, just like Mateus's wedding website, her homepage really tells like a quick overview of what you're going to get with her. So she goes into her sort of mission statement for modern branding. She has like, what is branding photography? Why product photography? What is a personal branding session? And just gives like a quick, succinct overview of the idea of what her photography can do for your business. And then she's got links to FAQs, getting started, packages, and pricing. So again, someone coming through her website will instantly get everything they need. And then ready to tell your brand story, contact us. So I call it kind of like a one-pager idea for a homepage where you're giving like a quick snippet of everything they're going to find on your website on your homepage. When we go into one of her galleries of images, she's using our theme Slate, which has a slideshow viewer at the top, but then it has a tiled overview at the bottom. And I find this is a really great layout for when you're showing a lot of images because they can either look in the slideshow or in the tiled view, or they can look at them one-on-one at the top. So it just makes for a nice layout because you kind of have this sort of hero image at the top, but then you can get a really quick sense of the style of their compositions. When you go to her contact page, she's got a link to her packages and pricing again, but then she's got this really great about me statement. I told you I was going to harp on these a lot throughout this presentation, but I think this is a really great tone. Like it starts off with, I believe in you, you hustlers, you go-getters. Like she's kind of putting herself in the shoes of her client and talking about how her photography style is really related to the needs of the services of her clients. So I thought this was just like a really smart way to approach it. And then her contact information, and she's also included her live Instagram feed integrated onto this page. So just like really professional, but friendly, and sets a really great tone for her audience. Again, I've included a lot of different websites here. The approach can be different, really different from site to site. So there's no like one rule, but personally, I find her approach really effective. Okay, so now I'm going to get into sort of more the general practices and ideas. CVs and about pages I've talked about quite a bit. I really want to show you the different styles for the different types of websites because again, like the writing should really be reflective of who your ideal audience is and what kind of information they want about you. People often think about the about pages on their websites as an afterthought, but our research actually shows that these are the most visited pages on all format websites. And that's for the simple reason that someone coming to your website probably has some kind of insight into you already. They've seen your work in an exhibition or on social media, or maybe like when I was looking for a wedding photographer, I saw a preview of some of their work on like a wedding website, and they're finding you through some sort of directory. It's not super common for people to come into your website completely cold. They have some interest in your work, So now they want more background information. They want to know what services you offer. They want to know about your artistic approach. They want something from you. So creating like a short, succinct statement is really helpful. For a lot of like emerging photographers, people just getting started, you maybe don't have a ton of things to note on a resume yet. So that's why I think what I call like an annotated statement, this kind of about me statement is really great, where you're taking what little experience you have and you're putting into short descriptive sentences. So talking about your style, talking about your background, talking about where you're located, giving sort of a better picture of you can be a really helpful approach rather than just making it about this very formal resume style approach. Personal branding. So when someone comes onto your site, you really have a few oh, sorry, did you have a question, Amanda?
Whenever we have a good pause, we have a few more questions. So, I mean, if you want to finish this
No,
section,
go
no
ahead.
worries.
It's all good.
Okay. So we did have a question about, can you explain a little bit more about hero images and how to use them? Like, well, they say correctly, but I think they probably mean effectively, you know?
Yeah. So hero images are things that I like to use. Again, I think I tend to like them on those customer-facing websites where you might be including a lot of images on a gallery page. So when you have a home page or a services page and you just want to add in like a splash of like effective imagery, having those hero images at the top of the page really helps to set the tone. Um, so again, like something like Lasso Photo, she does this really nicely where her homepage just opens on to these, what I refer to as hero images, this slideshow that kind of gives a quick overview of her work. Or Mateus also does this, where on his homepage, it's showing off his work, but he also uses, oops, sorry. Pop-ups on it. He also uses hero images throughout his website as openers because really when it comes down to it, while you have to provide this content and guide people through the experience of hiring you, it should be about your work. Like that's the thing you're selling. Like you're selling yourself as a professional, but you're selling your photography at the end of the day. So making sure to inflect all of your pages with these beautiful images of your work is really so important. And like you'll see, like he uses images and text throughout all of his pages to keep it visually engaging. Like you don't want to just have an FAQ where it's just like a wall of text. Like he's inflected all of these with a lot of beautiful images. So he's giving you information, but always relaying it back to his images.
Awesome. And sort of related to this, we had a question saying, like, you know, I mean, essentially, they shoot a lot of types. So they shoot, says, I am a portrait, documentary, food, and lifestyle photographer. And
Mhm.
basically, they're struggling to make their website like kind of feel neat and cohesive and
Yep.
not all over the place.
Yep.
So we have some strategies on kind of organizing that. And there was a related question, basically, like, would we recommend having different portfolio sites for different types of work? So these kind of build off of each other because I think there's two ways you can do it
Yep.
depending on what kind of work you make and sort of um, also a bit like how well they work together and
Sure.
when it comes down to it also to a certain extent your budget and where you are in your business of whether it makes sense to have
100%.
two sites. So if you want to speak to kind of those points.
Yeah. So I have this slide where it's, can I have different types of work on my website? The answer is yes. And again, it does come down to budget, but what I generally tend to say to people who are struggling with whether or not to have multiple websites is the primary subject or audience for your work the same or very similar? So for example, Damola has like personal work as well as commissioned work, but all of her work is about these stunning portraits. And really that's what she's kind of bringing to each of these projects. And while the tone of personal work and commission work might be slightly different, it's all sort of around this. She's shooting very similar subjects. It's all about portraiture. It's all about shooting people. Where I think you start to require different websites is where you're speaking to very different audiences or you're shooting very, very different things. So Erin, whose branding website I just showed you, also shoots weddings. And so she has a separate website for her weddings. So she has her branding and portraits website, and then she has her wedding photography website. And there's some overlap. There's overlap in the information about her, but you'll see that even her statement is slightly different on the wedding website. Like her experience is the same, her background's the same, but the information and how she phrases it is different on each of her websites. And the reason for the need for the two different websites is that these are two audiences that need a lot of support and information about hiring her. And the information that she needs to provide them is different. So someone hiring a wedding photographer needs different information than someone hiring a branding photographer for their small business. So in that instance, I think it's really effective to separate the websites. If you don't think you need to provide different information for the different styles of work, for the different audiences, then keep your website all in one place. That said, if you are constrained by budget, I think that you can also make multiple pages on your website, but make them clearly defined on your site menu. So like Erin has branding, portraits, events on her website, create pages or sections on your website for each of the styles of photography so they all have their own distinct page on your site. So that would be sort of the short answer without dealing with it on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Like
Thank you,
if you
Stacey.
need 5 different services pages on your website, then it might start getting confusing for people. So that's sort of the short answer.
Correct. Yeah, it's sort of a where you are in your business, who they face, and as to the where you are in your business, like, how affordable is it your current income, or are you ready to like you're close enough to make that leap and
Yeah.
and try out splitting them.
Well, and I know lots of people that kept, like, I have a friend who's an artist who also does sort of like more commercial work as well. And she had one format website for a long time and then recently like branched off into two because the other part of her business became more developed and successful. And she's like, okay, now I can justify splitting them up. But I would also say like that said, like keep your homepage really mostly geared towards the style of work that you are most pursuing and also the work you feel the strongest about. So like when people land on your website, they're coming to something that is like the thing you're trying to promote the most. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. I also I think let's do another slide or two, and then I had a great question about sort of the support and some other features that we could
Sure.
touch on.
Oh, and I was also going to say about multiple websites that Format does offer a discount to members who are getting secondary websites on their account. So I think it's 20% off of annual plans if you're adding a second website or a third website for every additional website you get on your account. And you can also manage multiple websites from the same account on Format, which is super handy. I personally have like several websites that I handle off of my one account. So it just makes it really easy to click back and forth. Yeah, so there's lots of tools to support that. Okay, so back to the slides. Personal branding. I won't go too deep into this. The big thing is like your work should be the focus. I think sometimes when people are building a website, they see all the flashy tools and they get a little carried away with colors and typography and all sorts of stuff. And it should really be in service of your work. I brought up Erin and Mateus's websites as examples because they both have like really nice design touches that support the work without taking away from it. Like Mateus does a lot of wedding photography out in nature. So he's got these beautiful sort of like twig branding elements as page breaks throughout his site. They all support and speak to the type of work he does, but they're not overwhelming. So color, font selection, all that stuff should really just be a support to show visual cohesion, but not take away from your beautiful images. Curating equals confidence. Like we were talking about small websites, having a short curated selection of work is actually makes your site a lot stronger It shows that you have confidence in your eye, especially as a photographer. Like in photography, it's really easy to go out and shoot a couple hundred images in a day. Like it happens when you're shooting a wedding, you shoot 400 images, 1,000 images in a day. Not all of those should end up on your website. Showing a short curated selection really shows confidence, and it shows people that you know how to um, really like narrow down and that you have confidence in the images that you're taking. We recommend approximately 20 images per page. It can be less than that, but anything past 20 images and you're starting to lose people's attention, the scroll kind of stops after that point. One way to get around that on galleries where you do need more work is to have that tiled view, because really, again, it's about how long you can expect someone to really stay on a single page. Make sure to optimize your images for web for fast loading experience. I've linked to Format's guide on that here. So this is about having the images the right size and the right DPI so that they look great on all screens, but they're fast loading, especially if you have a lot of images on your site. You don't want there to be a big loading lag when someone is trying to load a gallery page with 300 images. Organize your images by series or type to tell a visual narrative of your skills. I keep saying I love that image navigation collection page. I think those are really effective because it's showing your best image from each of your series and using that as the way for people to enter into different pages of your website. And keep your site menu nice and short by using collection pages or drop down. So like on Erin's page, it just had branding, portraits, and events. So having those very clean and clear site menus really help to guide people's experience of your website. This is just a diagram that I like to include where it's just, do you like this image, yes or no, when you're trying to think about adding images to your website? The short answer is that ultimately it's up to you. But if you're struggling on what to include in your portfolio, ask a friend or a colleague for their advice. Show other people your website as you're developing it, because really you're sending it out into the world and you're not going to be able to explain your website to everyone on the internet. So show different people, get their advice, ask them what's working for them and what's not, and then use that advice accordingly. And we already handled this one, but I'm happy to answer some more questions. And then motion. So more and more we're seeing photographers add motion elements to their website. Not everyone does. There's also a lot of people that are working between photography and video. There's lots of ways to add motion to your website. You can replace any image on format with an animated GIF. You can embed videos from YouTube and Vimeo. You can add hosted video files on your custom pages. Those are, when you have a hosted video, it means that you don't have to add it to a third-party service. It's actually saved on your website itself. And we also have premium slideshows. I showed you a couple of those as hero images. And you can turn autoplay onto those if you want them to auto generate. This is just a really nice website by Hallie Cohen, who is a photographer and director. And what I love about her work page is that she's used animated GIFs on any of the galleries where you can see video on her site. So I love that adding that little bit of motion to her homepage really tells you what you're going to find inside of each of the pages of her site. I just thought that was really smart.
If
Yeah.
you don't mind, I know we're about to dive into social, but it seems like a good moment to touch on one of the questions,
Sure.
which is one of our guests has been with the same web host for over a decade,
Mhm.
and they've stayed with them because the platform they're currently using is easy to use, so they can, make quick and frequent updates.
Yep.
It's flexible, and they says they make changes often, and they're almost always able to accommodate them. So I'm not entirely sure what some of those changes are, but just and that their customer service is very responsive. And at this other platform, they get on the phone with them, but they
Mm.
also like walk them through or explain things when they're having trouble. They're feeling like they've outgrown this current platform. So they're wondering if we can kind of touch on like what our customer support is like, kind of availability of templates and making changes.
Totally.
And it might feed into some of your suggested templates later too, but I thought that I didn't want to, this one's been sitting for a little bit and I didn't want to
Yeah.
forget.
I mean, I'm biased, right? But I think that Format's customer service is like next to none. We don't offer phone support, but we have live chat. So I'm in my Format dashboard right now, actually. You can see it, Amanda. It's showing up. Okay.
Yes.
And we actually have 24/7 live chat, and it's a real human. So if you click on the icon and you go to messages, you can start a chat right away. Bot answers instantly, but we generally have someone pick up within a couple of minutes. So you can ask any questions here. The reason why we do live chat over the phone is that they'll send you things like web links or like little videos showing you how to do things on their website. They'll do screen share stuff, which is not possible over the phone. When we have someone come into a live chat, we know that they're online. Whereas if someone, we've used to do phone support way back in the day, but then people might not be in front of their computer, so it'd be hard to help them with their problem. So live chat really works well. Our team is incredible. I can't say enough how much, and like a lot of our team are photographers and artists themselves, so they really get the issues that our members are facing, and have dealt with a lot of them myself. I started out in Format support team, so I would answer members' questions all day long. We also have integrated help articles here. So if you go to help and you type in anything like it'd be good if I could spell gallery, it will bring up all these articles about how to do different things. So go to gallery pages, and almost every one of our help articles has a video. You'll see my face all over them, guiding you how to build different things on Format. But they're short, like 2-3 minute videos showing you how to do everything, followed by like images with instructions throughout on the same topic. So however you learn, whether it's through reading or through video and listening, we've got all the resources there. I'm biased, but I've built websites on Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, Cargo. Like built many different websites in my day. I find Format to be the most intuitive, especially if you're someone who's used things like, I mean, if you can use a Facebook uploader, you can use Format. But if you want to get into the advanced design tools and things like that, um, it really kind of has the same sort of logic as Photoshop or different design programs that you would use, but it's much simpler than those. So it's really straightforward. Like what I like about Format is that it works for very many different experience levels. Like if you are a complete beginner, you just add your images to one of the templates and it looks wonderful. If you are a designer and you get into the advanced features, it's totally customizable. So you can really do anything you want with the platform. So yeah.
I think we've also seen, I know over the last few months, we've had some folks that had been with Format for a long time decide they wanted to change their themes for an update.
Oh yeah.
And I think
I
most
mean,
of
I
the
can show you in 20 seconds how to change your theme. So one thing that's great is that you can change your theme and it will automatically move over your images and content. You won't lose anything, which is not the case with all web builders. So if I go into design, the theme of your site, by the way, I'll just say affects the layouts of your gallery pages, your site menu, and your collection pages, so that image navigation. If I go into theme on Format, I can see my current theme here and I can customize my theme here, like things like the layout of my gallery pages. So say I want to fit all of my images to screen instead of having them fit to the width of the page. And this is all previewed for me. It won't apply until I press Save Changes. If I clear changes, it goes back to what I had already. So I'm getting a bit of a lag with the video. If I go to change theme, then we'll open up all of Format's themes. There's almost 100 themes on Format. So I can also go into different specialties. So say I want to look at photography specific portfolios, I can do that. Or I know what kind of layout I want, like I want a horizontal layout. I can look at only the horizontal themes. So say I want to apply one of those to my site, I'll just click on it and I'll say, try this theme. And it will instantly apply it to my website. It will reorder my content. And now I can see what it looks like on this theme instead. I can also see what it looks like in full screen view by clicking here. And I can see what it looks like on mobile view. So I can instantly see how this will apply on mobile. Again, it won't save until I press save changes. If I clear changes, it'll go back to my initial theme. I can even play around with the settings before I apply to the theme. So say I want to go into the gallery display and I want to turn off full height on mobile so it will fit to screen. I can also horizontal scroll on mobile. So I can set it to horizontal scroll on mobile as well here if I want. So I have got control over those different elements. And so I can see how it will look on different devices. So it's as simple as that. It's really very simple to change between templates. The other nice thing is like your custom page layouts, when you build your own page template, that won't change from theme to theme. It's really just the layouts of those gallery pages and your site menu.
Awesome. That's great, Stanzi. Related, there was also a follow-up question. That were both, I have actually two that were kind of site design related. So
Sure.
one is, is it still like how important is it still to have a blog associated with your website? And I know I partially know the answer to this because I've seen some format websites with blogs, but they were wondering, can format accommodate that? And I guess how would that sort of feature be used?
So Forma does have a blog tool. I'm using it on my own site, but I use it actually as a news feed instead of as a traditional blog, which is like a nice tip. Like if you are more on the fine art side of things, it's just a really nice way if you're creating like a running list of stuff. And you can show your blog in a listing format like I have. So it shows a preview of each post. And then when you click through, you'll see the images or video and all the related copy. I see a lot of photographers use them to show behind the scenes or to talk about different projects. The big value of SEO still, to my mind, is the SEO capabilities because you can add SEO details to every blog post. So where on regular pages, you can only add SEO to the single page and to the images. On blogs, you can add SEO information for every single blog. So if you go into settings on format, and SEO, it will open up your SEO details. So you can add in a homepage description. It gives you a preview of what it will look like on Google. And then if you go into improve your SEO content, and I don't have all of mine filled out because I have a lot of sample pages from doing webinars on format, you can fill out a title and description for each of your pages. But if you go down to the area for blogs, you'll see that I can add SEO information for all of my blog posts. So it really can like double or triple or quadruple the SEO content coming from your website because you can do one for every single blog page on your site. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think the last sort of, while we're talking about features specifically, is I know we showed one of the wedding photographers that kind of had a pricing information, but another person asked, how do you add a booking site to your page, or what's the best way? And I think there's probably kind of two ways depending on what booking service people are using.
Yep.
Like you could link to your menu, or you could link it into text in the body of a page, but there's probably some other
I mean,
more.
there's actually more options than that because
Yeah.
format's pretty flexible. So one thing that Amanda's talking about, so if I go to create, so the pages section of your website is where you build all of your content. If I go to create an external link, I can add a link out to an external page on my menu. So say I like wanted to go to a link to my HoneyBook web page, and then I just fill in the URL and I can have it open onto a new window, and that would add it to my site menu, and that would link directly out to that page. So if someone clicks on that site menu link, it would open my HoneyBook page for them. But if we go to custom page, so custom pages on format are just what they sound like, pages where you can build your own, oops, again, it would be good if I could type and spell. They're pages where you can build your own layouts that are different from your site theme. They're super flexible. I wish I had time to show you all of the features because there's tons of stuff you can do with these. But if we go to add a section and you go to media, on format, you can actually add in HTML embeds. So what this means is that it's a way to add a third-party plugin to your website. So things like Jotform, Calendly, Honeybook, different sites like these, you can get a code from them, an embed code, and you can embed your booking stuff directly onto your format website. It won't work with absolutely every booking software, but for a lot of stuff where they can give you an HTML embed code, it will. So I've seen a lot of members add in things like if they want very specific contact forms, survey forms, booking stuff, calendars, you can embed them that way directly onto your website. The other way that Amanda's referring to, actually I'll add images and text to show you how image links work too. So I can highlight any text on my page and I can press link, and then I can link it to an internal page or an external website. So that's another way. Or I can add in an image. I'll just grab an image from somewhere on my website. And I can click on the image and press link. And same thing, I can link it out to an external page. So I can even have the icon or logo for my booking stuff. And then I can link out from that image to my booking software as well. There's
I
tons of
think
ways to link out to external stuff.
one thing that's important to remember, that some people forget about is when you are linking to an external booking service or page, you want to set that little box to have it open in a new tab so that anyone that is
So
looking at
open in a new window.
yeah, new window, yes, because we want to make sure that they don't lose your site just in case they don't make that booking right away. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh no, where did the website go?
Yeah, totally good point. Also on custom pages, we do have contact forms that you can set to go to any email address. So that's another thing. We even have a couple that are customizable where there's different customizable fields. So you can add in your own stuff like tell me, again, it'd be good if I could type, tell me about your event. And you can add in different questions or fields into this contact form and make it your own. So depends on how bespoke you need that form to be. We also have mailing list forms that are completely customizable. Lots of different stuff built into the platform already for you to work with. Any other questions, Amanda?
I think that let's see, that one's done. There were a couple related to SEO that I know we'll get to in a moment, so we'll do that. But there was also I think you kind of touched on it, but someone still had a little bit of question about, do you believe that we'll be able to design our themes other than use what is in the gallery? And I think by design, you're not entirely making your own theme, but that would be where you can customize the themes, and there's so many. So.
So yeah, the themes are very customizable. The other thing is you can also build out your pages using custom pages here. Sorry, just say, I'll show that to you again. So when I talk about custom pages, they're really super flexible. Because you can even add galleries of images into custom pages. So if for some reason you're not finding a template does everything you want it to do, you can use a custom page to build out your pages instead. So when you first come up to a custom page, there's templates where we pre-designed pages you can use and edit from, or you can start from scratch. Both are fully customizable. The templates, there's the About Me pages, contact pages, resumes. The resumes I really love because these optimize really nicely for mobile. All sorts of stuff that you can use to start off with. This is also where you'll find those full bleed title pages. But if we start off from scratch, you'll see that you can add in text elements, images. These are those slideshows that we saw in a couple of the websites I showed you, images with text, and image sets. So these are galleries of images you can embed into a custom page as well. If I go in and add one of these sections, I'll get this image uploader. We also have a great Lightroom plugin. So if you're using Lightroom, I would really recommend downloading the Format plugin because then you can pull your images directly from Lightroom into Format, which is super nice. But I'm going to grab from Format because your Format account comes with image storage. So I just leave all of my images on my image storage and I can grab them from there. And then I'll save that. And then I go into custom, and like you'll see, I just pulled over 100 images instantly, basically. It's going to take a second to load because I've got my video on. So right now I'm on a square layout, but I can change it to masonry slideshow, vertical, whatever. I can change whether it's full width or not. I can change the number of columns. So say I want to try a vertical layout instead. Like it will instantly shift. I can change like the horizontal offset. I can decide that I don't want them full width. Like there's tons of stuff I can do in a matter of seconds to change the look and layout of my different pages. So a lot of those pages that I showed you, like Mateus's homepage with like the slideshow and text elements and images and things like that, those are built using custom pages. But then there's a ton of stuff you can do within your gallery pages, your template to customize the layout as well. Like you can change image heights, columns, all sorts of stuff. So the sky's the limit, really.
Awesome.
Any other kind of layout questions, Amanda?
I think related while you are in your account, since I'm answering more of the like why people should have it in the questions. So if people want to look at
Sure.
the answered questions, they can find that. But since I had mentioned alt text earlier, could you
Mhm.
just kind of quickly show where people could add alt text
Sure.
into their account and it's going to be obviously a little different on different platforms,
Yep.
but it's generally similar-ish, and it
Yep.
all serves the same purpose.
Some format, this will work the same way on your gallery pages and your custom pages. Like when I hover over an image, you'll see the option to add a caption. So this is the place where I'd add text that I want to appear with the images on my site. Like, so things like title, date, medium, etc. But then when I hover over, I'll also see edit image description. And this is where I can add in SEO data. So for this, I'd recommend short descriptive sentences. So I'd say something like ink on watercolor paper image of seated woman by Stancy Tooth. So short descriptive sentences, I add in my name, I add in the medium, I add in like different details about that will help my images be searchable. With photography, it would work a little differently where you might want to add in things about the subject of the photograph, where it was taken, any identifiers like that. One big tip, I'm not personally an SEO expert, but a tip that I can give is like one mistake I see people make is that they have the same description for every image and every page on their website. That will actually start to look spammy by search engines. So you don't want to repeat, like some people just copy and paste the same description on every image. And I would recommend not doing that. If you don't have the time to tag every image, grab a couple of images from each page and write a really good image description for them rather than copying and pasting descriptions throughout your website. And just be really clear about what it actually is. So on like some people try to add a lot of verbiage to their pages, hoping to get a better search ranking. But you have to remember that those descriptions can actually be visible on search engines. So you don't want to just give people like an endless stream of keywords. It's much better if you have like short descriptive sentences like painter Stancy Tooth is based in Toronto. She got her MFA from the University of Ottawa, blah, blah, blah. Like those short descriptive sentences are going to be more appealing to people reading them on the internet, but they include a lot of that key information that people will need to find me.
Exactly, and, I mean, something good to note that it's a lot of us think about it being there mainly for search engine like search engines to see, but it is also something that people use as an accessibility tool. So when they have, visibility issues or, that would be something that they could use to help describe this image that they're seeing is what you put in for alt text. So, want to be conscious of, describing it as best and simply as possible so that you can help people that also maybe can't see it as clearly as someone else.
Yeah. And the last thing I was going to show on custom pages is when you choose a block, like this block of 3 images, the image setting will set the width of the image, but I can play with the orientation and position. So right now it's set on landscape. I can set it to the original height. I can zoom in and out and move my image around. I can add a link, different things like that. So when I'm choosing these different custom page sections to build my site, I can actually customize them quite a bit from these different blocks once I have them in my page. I can also highlight text and choose between large heading, and body text. Like there's tons of formatting options. There's tons of different media that I can include in these pages. Like I can add in a slideshow. And then I can just drag and drop these into the order that I want them to appear on my page, and start to build it up like that. So that's custom pages. That's for when you want to build your own layout. I'd recommend it for things like services pages, FAQ pages, pages where you have a lot of text or a diversity of media. When you're just having like a running feed of images or video, I'd recommend using a gallery page. This will be impacted by the site theme that you choose. And again, like there's tons of customizations and options for display on the site themes. And I've included some different tutorial videos on these different parts of the format app. So on this slide deck, which we'll send to you as a PDF, I've included links to a lot of the practical stuff. So I'm clicking on links. Adding a domain to your website, search engine optimization, how to add your sitemap to Google Search Console, all that sort of like nitty gritty of setting up your website, how to add a mailing list to track your contacts, and then other tools like Workflow, which is our studio management and proofing tool. So if you want to send client galleries after a photo shoot, our marketplace tool. Format has 2 different e-commerce solutions. One is an auto-fulfill option where we do the printing and shipping of prints for you. The other one is just a straight store feature where you handle the printing and shipping yourself. You can sell products, you can sell digital downloads, you can sell services. It's a very flexible tool. And then these are just like some different professional practice things. So like tips and tricks for photographer websites, writing your about page, design do's and don'ts, all that sort of stuff, and then intro to the different format tools. So this intro to the design editor kind of goes over the nitty gritty of like how to change your theme, how to customize it, all that good stuff. So there will be a lot of resources in here for you. Like I mentioned, we have a ton of customer examples on the format website. So if you go to format.com/customers, we have a whole reservoir of customer websites. It's divided by media. So if you go into photography, there'll be subsections for like fine art, editorial, journalism, all those different subsections, and you'll see a ton of great example sites. And then I always encourage everyone, once you set up your site, please fill out the spotlight feature. As you can see, we love sharing the websites of our members. So, and we have this huge network that we like to send out information to. So send us your website. We'd love to promote you on our social, on our website, and all that good stuff. So when you build a great format website, please let us know. Do you have any other questions coming in, Amanda?
I think we're almost wrapped up on questions. I'm doing a typed answer to one of these here about the shop. So if I'm just letting you know that that's coming through in a moment, because mainly I think that what you described for booking would also apply to an external shop. And I'm going to add a link in
Yeah,
the answer to information.
same idea. I mean, and
Yeah.
with an external shop, there might not always be the same embed options, but definitely the external links, text links, image links, all that stuff would definitely work. Like we have some members who sell through Etsy or Shopify, and they tend to add those as external links to their site menu. But lots of different ways to do that.
And so I think, let's see, I'm going to, a couple more questions came in, but the The first one that I kind of hadn't gotten to yet was just we touched on it a little bit. She was asking if you kind of have two different methods, would we recommend sort of separating the work through series? She does both experimental, like sort of printmaking, and I think it sounds like photography. I'm guessing since she's
Okay.
here today. So
Yeah, I mean, fine art websites tend to use a couple of different ways to separate work. So one is by series, another is by media. It sounds like in your particular case, I'd probably recommend that, having a page for printmaking, having a page for photography. That is unless you show them together. If you show them together in the same exhibition, you might want to think about dividing the work by exhibition or series. That's what I personally do on my site. I have it separated by series because I might use multiple media in a series, but it's one concise idea. Like really think about how you would tell the story of your practice and organize it that way. Like, is the story of your practice chronological? Is it divided by series? Is it divided by media? And then organize your website menu accordingly. So, yeah.
awesome. And then one, I just want to say thanks out loud to Grace E, who said, I've been using Format for over 6 years now. So thank you so much. We're so glad to have you with us. And we already answered that. And so we also have a question saying, I'm a fashion photographer. How would you handle portfolio versus Instagram? Do you think it's best to use only hero images in either, or like maybe how would you treat them differently? They are fairly different experiences, but I'll
Yeah.
let you the
Yeah,
rest
we
is
sort of skimmed over the social media area because we were busy with other questions. But I mean, everyone handles both social and their website differently. I think the rule of thumb is kind of like your website is your professional calling card, whereas your social media is sort of like a running feed of your day to day. So for me, my social media, like my Instagram, is the behind the scenes of my practice. It's giving like background, whereas my portfolio, my website is sort of like a more not static, but a more kind of constant visual record of my practice. So it's a much more professional space. Um, yeah, so I think the two, it's important to speak to each other. It's important to maintain both. The other thing is like the sense of time that's different for both. Like your social media is effective if you like maintain it on a very regular basis. Like it kind of involves like a weekly commitment, but your photography portfolio, you might update it like once every few months or once every 6 months. Like it's more of like a stationary professional document over like kind of this running feed of images. With Instagram, you don't really have control over beyond like the chronological feed. You don't have control over the flow of like how people are going to experience your work. So that's where I think there's the important distinction between the two spaces.
right. And I think that is all of our questions that had come through today. We're so thankful that you all joined us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.